do you th- what do you think is how much should we like stay in a company or an institution like at max to just get an experiment, or like is there some certain years for that? Or because you said you were in J&J for a decade, it helped you a lot like that you get all these like experiments and you really like you did many stuff in there, but you say you wouldn't do that, you wouldn't stay there for that long if you like go past. So why is the reason what when it helped you, it boosted your resume? Is that like is that just because of the J&J or any other company? So should I consider like not staying for too much long time in a company? And
So I'm gonna pause. Hi, friends. Joey Sasaki here. This is Mobin. Mobin's fantastic. He's an undergraduate in computer engineering. He's based in Turkey. He's an entrepreneur. He's built a massive community on Skool focused on helping individuals crush the SAT. He's got a perfect SAT math score, and he's interested in living in the US and trying to find the most optimal path there. And I was sharing a bit about my career journey where I worked at Johnson & Johnson for a decade advancing surgical robotics, which included an international rotation in Tokyo that I did for about 3 years before moving back to the US. So I'm going to let you hear his full questioning or line of thought, which is about 2 minutes leading up to that, while I take some notes on my tablet. And then we're going to talk about different pathways to global opportunities and the pros and cons and risks of them, because there's lots of risks and challenges. As someone who ended up kind of on the bad end of experiment, not experiment, but my assignment ended prematurely and it had a negative impact on my family, which caused us to take the jump and stay on our own and do entrepreneurship. These things are very messy, whether you go entrepreneurship, staying within a company, or going through academic means. So let's listen to Mobin and then I'll take notes and we'll chat.
so I just watched the video, respond back to you. So you asked about my the education that I have here. So I'm doing bachelor's right now. I'm doing bachelor's in computer engineering and bachelor's in computer education and instructional technology. And my goal was to do a master in US to be able to just come to US. So if I like had another way to um, go to US without doing a master, I would do that because I don't want to go on academic way. So the only reason that I want to do a master is to just be able to go to US because that's the easier way. Like there are some other problems to go to US rather by just working and getting into a company or getting accepted into a company, and then the company should sponsor me to be able to get the visa process. But just doing a master is way easier. So that's why like I want to finish the bachelor here and then apply for masters in the US and just get into master, finish my master there, and then maybe start my own business there, or to be able to stay there if I, of course, if I like to, because I don't know, maybe I come to US and I don't like living there, but just want, as you said, like I have to be flexible with the location. So I just want to try different locations around the world. But the first destination, I want to just get into US and start my business there. So if I like, be able to like get into their master program in US and then finish the master, then get into company, work in a company or in a startup that you said, then start my business, or maybe like after master start my business. So like different ways, different paths that they are. I'm not sure which one to follow. Like I would love to actually talk with you about the different paths based on my situation currently and what is like the best way to come there. I would love to talk to you about those. And about the so you said that you want to, like you said, be more apprehensive about staying in an institution for some long time, but you said that helped you to boost your resume. So is that like, do you what do you think is how much should we like stay in a company or an institution like at max to just get an experiment, or like is there some certain years for that? Or because you said you were in J&J for a decade, it helped you a lot like that you get all these like experiments and you really like you did many stuff in there, but you say you wouldn't do that, you wouldn't stay there for that long if you like go past. So why is the reason what when it helped you, it boosted your resume? Is that like is that just because of the J&J or any other company? So should I consider like not staying for too much long time in a company? And then
Yep. So we'll go there. Okay. My back. Excellent. So what I want to start with first is what I did. And then I'll go through things I've seen. And then I'll go through what I think could work best for Mobin. So we'll start with how I did it. And for me, my example is from US to Japan. So from the very start of my career, I was told that Japan would never be an opportunity. As an engineer in Cincinnati, there wasn't a direct need for me to be relocated. International, like expat relocations for businesses, are very expensive, so they typically do it for senior talent, whether it's senior technical leaders or senior global leaders. And it's really pricey to relocate a large family. And also, a lot of people don't have openness to international relocations like you do. And a lot of this stuff is kind of easier to do from a personal perspective when you're young or have young children. It's hard to do when you're old. So there's this weird inversion of you need the skill set to be validated from the business to go and do it. So I'm a crazy exception. Okay, so what we'll start with is like phase one. I'll use blocks maybe. And this is probably 0 to 7 years of what I'm going to call be a darn good engineer. I worked across a wide range of our technology platforms, which helped me understand exactly where the business is. But I was also in parallel to this. Oh, it's okay, love. Emiko's getting a banana. She's my 3-year-old, almost 4-year-old. In parallel to that, though, I was a very strong connector. So kind of same season. These both are linked. So I was always connecting with where the business was going, what are the problems we're facing in the Japanese market with commercialization, with regulatory bodies, and how do we kind of solve these large problems whenever Japan sent. I could open this banana for you, absolutely. I'm sure all our friends on YouTube and Skool can wait for you to get the banana you need. Wait. But you should eat this upstairs. All right, don't make a mess. So whenever talent was rotating out, I was always trying to connect. And I didn't reach the level that most international relocations occur at within my business. So I had a lot of lateral moves across the organization, which is that's where a lot of my apprehension comes from, is that you are more likely to not be promoted and not receive increases in pay and title when you move laterally, but it's an investment in yourself for skill set. So my career path, if I were to repeat it, I don't know exactly what I would repeat, but I know that we struggled financially as we grew a family early in our years because J&J continued to under-promote and underpay me because I was moving laterally. But the skills I was banking and the reputation I was banking were huge because people started to believe that, like, yeah, this guy could go out to Japan and bridge commercial and R&D together. So there's this sense of belief. And I was going every summer for short-term missions trips, and I knew the language. Emiko, don't go in there. He's sleeping. Leave him alone. Jeez, like trying to wake up the baby. So that's the first part. That's the early stage. And then eventually there was kind of what I would call like a shoulder. Let's make it a special block. There's a shoulder tap of like, hey, we're looking for an engineer who knows Japanese, who can work across a wide range of partners to make sure this market's heard. It was kind of like a unicorn job. I got tapped on the shoulder for it. So it took 7 years of positioning within an organization for them to have a prioritized need or opportunity for someone in another country that happened to align with the country I wanted to go to, aligned with my language skill set, culture skill set, family openness. Emiko, leave him alone. Let him sleep. No, leave him alone. But no, go somewhere else. But she just woke up the baby. This could fall apart. Let's see. So that was kind of the first thing. It's like a crazy shoulder tap. This started a relocation to Japan as front-end innovation lead, which ended up being me directing global innovation from Japan and APAC. And then the role was cut short prior to what was agreed upon, and our family had moved. It took 12 moves to get to Japan. I'm going to pause for a minute. All right, we're back. Emiko's watching a movie. I think I put on Minions. Akio's half preoccupied and fine crawling around. So let's get back to it. So I went to Japan, did all these moves to get there. The assignment ended prematurely, and it didn't seem like the right fit for us to take the path back to the US. They changed the state last minute, so super far from family. So what we decided is we're going to continue life in Japan. Japan part 2. And this was through Tokyo Entrepreneurship. So trying to start a company in Japan, focus on brand management, helping people grow their businesses, helping them increase their social media. Part of it was Skool, starting a paid community on Skool. And we had a lot of different challenges with our business model that caused this to fail. So in any business, we'll come back to this chart in a minute. Like in any business, you typically have what's called this is cash. This is no cash. We pulled a pretty large personal loan to exit J&J and stay within the entrepreneurial scene. It was around $75,000 that could cover our kids staying in school and housing for a decent amount of time with expenses. And you have something called burn rate. So this cash keeps decreasing and decreasing and decreasing. At the same time, when you start a business, you normally start, we'll say at zero. We're assuming you don't take on debt. You normally start at zero. I'll start right above it. And then I had my first sale, which was kind of like piecewise cash. But then it takes a while, especially for things like Skool and things, to pick up and for you to get this nice little swoop. So what happened was my burn rate, it took too long to see the swoop. The swoop in reality is another 6 months out from now. So our burn rate exceeded our expenses, and we were put in a position where it's like, we got to go. Got to go. And this is going to tie into the entrepreneurial start a business pathway. So we didn't have enough financial runway to do entrepreneurship successfully. We tried to legally start a business in Japan, and we didn't have enough capital to do that. We needed around 5 million yen, which is like, with inflation, like 30,000 USD. Let's see if it's still recording. Okay, my computer glitched out for a second. So it's a substantial amount of money up front to start a business legally and compliantly to self-sponsor visa. We learned all that after exiting J&J. Like, we got all the learnings in country trying to get it sorted and realizing timing and legality of us being here is not going to work. So we had to take a transition to Chicago. And now the pathway here is to stay here for 5 to 10 years. Work a full-time global leadership job. So this is kind of going to be a split path now. We'll have a global leadership role. Likely at AbbVie or Baxter. I'm still in process and conversations with folks. In parallel to this, so here's our little tie, we're going to do Skool. And eventually, as Skool hits the right financials, then starting a business that allows me to do life and leisure and go to Japan and Chicago as often as we want. So that's kind of the end game, is be close to family in Chicago, still have life in Japan, bounce between them, and have the business, the entrepreneurship is the liftoff, and global leadership provides the financial stability. Oh, shoot. All of my screen share hasn't been working. Where'd it go? I can fix it. 1 second. Apologies, friends. This happens from time to time. It happened during the great glitch. Here we go. Are we back? Let me quickly show that diagram that I made because I don't know when it failed. So basically, we went to Japan part 2, Tokyo Entrepreneurship, and then from there to Chicago, which is where we're at right now. In Chicago, we kind of have a parallel path of global leadership at MedTech and a community on Skool, and then this creating enough finance for us to go to Japan our own way legally, and then have a global business to move between. So this is what my new life looks like. Now, some caution to some of the pathways you explain, and then we'll talk through what makes the most sense. So this next section is going to be like things I've seen. Hopefully this is helpful to all of you friends as you find your next best opportunity. So I have seen when I studied at, we want to make a nice little school here. Oh my gosh, it's a terrible building. I almost made it a church. So anyway, this is UIUC. This is the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana. That's where I studied. I did my undergrad here. Here. And while I studied there was tons of master's students and undergrads from all kinds of countries. And I became friends with many of them. And during the career fairs, you'll have this nice big room. You have all these different companies setting up shop right here. So you have your P&G, J&J, etc. The vast majority of these companies will have a sign right at the front, right at the top that says, I can't write that small, no sponsorship. Because many entry-level engineering roles, and entry-level does include master's degree students, can be filled by legal U.S. residents. So there's difficulty sponsoring students to take that jump. So the vast majority of my international friends ended up having to go back home. Like they weren't able to secure a bridge from this 2 years in US the way they hoped. Many of them thought the easy way is to go there to study and I'll be able to get a job. But I'll be able to get a job is the highest risk. That's the highest assumption because you don't have a skill set that legally requires sponsorship. So what a small percentage of them do is they ride what I like to call the academia train, which means let me get, a bachelor's and then let me go to the US and get a master's and then let me go for a PhD and then let me go for a postdoc. And if I'm here long enough, then I get hired on staff. Then the university hires me. And then you have sponsorship, and it's an academia forever train. And particularly for you, Mobin, I know you're not as interested in doing academia forever. Academia is a pathway towards the international life you hope for outside of Turkey. So I would just be very aware of this. You will have to network very strategically to have a what I'll call big box company, top Fortune 500 company that's recruiting these kinds of schools actually hire you. You may be able to find a startup that will pick you up if you have a niche enough skill set and kind of work your way into process. But startups also have the ability to grab talent that's not requiring sponsorship, which is unfortunate. That's one of the reasons that I struggled in Japan was needing sponsorship. I have to not only get a job, but a job that provides sponsorship to me. It's not impossible because I was like a top tier talent at that point after 10 years at J&J. So I had people willing to have those conversations because they could justify, oh, he's a highly skilled worker was the classification in Japan. So if I'm a highly skilled worker, Japan has a labor shortage. The US doesn't necessarily have that problem for college grads. So that's the watch out. So let's look at the pathways and what I would suggest. Yes. So here's Mobin. And Mobin, you can do whatever you want, by the way. Mobin, today you are an undergraduate, I believe in Turkey. In Turkey, I may have forgotten that, but I think you're in Turkey still. You can go the master's path. And you likely know this, I'm just trying to draw it out for other folks that have the same questions you have. You can go master's US. That is a known path. That could end up on a return path to a Turkey company. You can slog that out for 3 to 7 years to get sponsorship for a US role and then start a business in US and then start a business. US entrepreneur. And then, go from sponsorship to self-sponsorship. And that's, what's that, 12-year ride. This is what I would call your nominal most likely. Not impossible. The other pathway you have, and by the way, I have no issues with you doing a US Masters. It's like you do a US Masters in parallel, build out your entrepreneurship. So like in parallel entrepreneurship. And if within 2 years you're very targeted and generating cash, because there's rules, like, so this, we'll say this is 2 years of your master's is happening. In 2 years, legally start your business. And from there, you control how long you can stay in the US. The risk with this is, do you have all the skills to start a sustainable business that can pay for you and generate revenue for the US so that they want to give you a business license? Do you have some sense of proof that you're solving a problem? There's a pathway to it. Japan has a complicated pathway. I don't know the US pathway, but there's ways to legally start businesses in Japan called an LLC. I have an LLC for my stuff, right? But as a foreign, I have a foreign-owned, I have a U.S. citizen, but I was living foreign, owning an LLC in the U.S. But there's ways to own an LLC in the U.S. and be a foreigner. There's probably a way to do that and also live here to work the job, right? And then finding the ideal place and way to do that's important. As a master's student, you own all your IP. If you ended up joining the academia ride, right in this bus, once you get into this space, it depends on what kind of agreement you have with the university, whether they own your ideas or you own or co-own. It becomes complicated. Everyone's different. Every research institution's different in those spaces. So those are kind of the main pathways. The split is at Skool. I mean, the other option is you do your undergraduate. I'm going to dot this down here, start the same kind of curve. You do your undergraduate and then skip the master's, land a job in Turkey. And what I would say is target a 3 to 5 year window. There's something magic about the decade on a resume, but for the life you want to build, why would you wait the extra 5 years for that? But land a job that gets you as close to leadership as possible, where you can see the decisions they're making with the business. If you end up joining a huge company, which is still valuable, you're going to be far removed from the entrepreneurial skill set. So if you can find like a 20-person company that needs a couple engineers, like a couple programmers, that could be a sweet spot for you, because you're going to see it grow from 20 people to 50 if things go well in 3 to 5 years. You're going to have proximity to those top leaders because they're going to be more invested in you than if you work at J&J as an engineer. I had proximity to my lead design engineer and a project director who reported to a director who reported to another director who reported to a VP, to a company group chairman. And it just keeps going up. So you become farther and farther removed from the decisions being made in the business. And you need that learning on top of your engineering base to actually build a business. So land a job in Turkey for 3 to 5 years. And in parallel to this, I would say bank cash, like live frugally, store up cash. And in parallel to this, whenever you want, like entrepreneurship on the side. So I'd say like moonlight entrepreneurship. And when you find a legal way to self-sponsor in US, there's this big move to US as a business owner with confidence that your business won't fail and leave you and your 4 children stranded in Japan. Oh wait, that's coming from personal. Okay, so long-winded answer. Happy to hear your thoughts, Mobin, but also anyone on YouTube, anyone from our Skool community, Big Brain Club. This is the kinds of conversations I like to have, because everything's not as linear as we think, and a lot of the perspectives we've been fed from other people and socialized to believe aren't necessarily in our best interest. I'm not saying again that I'm right, but this is everything I've kind of seen. All right, keep changing the world, y'all. See you on the next one, wherever my stop record is. Later.